In addition to the dollar amount, there's also different methods that could be used to deal with the constraints that we currently are dealing with. Right now, we have at the $500,000 limit, you know that we have to go out for referendum anytime above and beyond $500,000. That kind of ties our hands if we need to make any kind of repairs in a quick fashion, whether it be a bridge or any other kind of emergency repairs. And it also limits us on our capital improvement program as well. And we're, a fair-sized city, and $500,000, as we kidded about in our meeting, can barely buy a house in some parts of the city nowadays. So with the $2 million, that will allow us to help fund the capital program on an annual basis if the council and the mayor choose to do that. And the other component of it is that's mentioned is that you are permitted to go higher than that. The mayor and council would be permitted to go higher than that, and the public would be allowed to petition that ordinance if they object to it. They would have a certain amount of time to file a petition. They'd have to gather a certain number of signatures, and they could file their objections accordingly. So there are two components to this idea, if you will, the suggestion. The floor would be raised from $500,000 to $2 million, but it wouldn't go to a referendum unless, of course, it was petitioned. It was a timely filed petition by the public. And that's the other component, and that's kind of the way things are going nowadays.
So the $2 million would automatically trigger the referendum? Or
No.
Oh, so the $2 million would be without review?
Right. The
And then
$2 million, because the general view is that you have duly elected officials. They were elected to represent their electorate in their areas, and then of course you have the mayor who's elected by all the people in the city. And if there are objections to anything above the $2 million, and then that's where the public can file their objections by filing a petition.
Okay.
So,
And if the petition were to fail, I mean, if they didn't
if they didn't get
adhere
enough
to the-
signatures,
right?
well then, I'm not sure what other details there might be to that, but there might be additional time granted if that was put in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time is now 30 days, and I think there was some leeway given with that.
Right.
But again, there's the ability for the council to hear the feedback from the public, and the public to have some oversight. But it's not necessary every single time, because most of it is pretty routine.
Yep. David, could you go through where you've been with this? I know that your experience here isn't very long, but what has the city been spending for capital budgets? What issues are there where this $500,000 has fallen short?
Sure. If you can, I did provide you with a budget right there.
Which section?
And in this package here. Just, there we go. A couple down here.
Thank you, Dave.
Sorry to make you get up there.
I provide you with the whole section from the budget. It's the capital section in the budget. I just highlighted some key points in there that you may want to read through later on, but there are, if you go back to the grid section, it looks like this, more of a spreadsheet kind of thing. I know it's kind of small, I need to put on my glasses as well here. but- Planning department, Dennis from our planning department has put together, and every year he does this, our capital improvement program. And this long list of items from the different and various types of departments that we have. All these items here represents after they've been cut back. And as mentioned, there are certain items that are urgent and certain items that are necessary, certain items that are higher priority than other items. And as you can see, currently we fund it, every year we fund it through $500,000 of notes, which are called bands, bond anticipation notes. And they never go to a bond, but every year we just revolve that band. We fund it in a band, and then the next year we end up paying off, and the next year we do another band. And the other part is a state program called the LoCIP program. They help us fund some of these different type of things. Most of it is sewer and water projects, some sidewalk things, those kind of items. All right. Certain items we may fund with more longer-term funding sources, like bonds. And as you can see here, if you go, well, just for an example, look at page 347. We had $322 million in requests. Obviously, a lot of those are not urgent, nor are they priority. We're on page 347.
We don't have to.
Yeah, we don't have page numbers, so,
Did I cut you off?
Yeah, tell us
That
at the-
was actually from the,
so at the top of the page, it starts with the replace masonry at DHS.
yeah, it says total city. Go back a couple pages on that. It's about, towards the bottom of the page, it'll say
Oh,
total
yeah.
city.
I think our number says
And so left
322.
column, it says department request, 322 million. If you,
Okay.
when you get to that.
Yeah. So it'll say total city here. And the top project description is replace masonry at DHS.
Yep.
Has everyone found that page? Okay.
Rector Park, solid waste and knowledge.
And that is page 347, so if we mark that, we'll be pretty much staying, that'll be at least a starting point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that gives you an idea of, based upon what the departments are requesting and what they feel some of their needs are, at least in the next several years, 6 years or so, what it might be. And look at what has been funded. Not a whole lot. We only have about $500,000 in bands that we do every year, about $500,000 of state monies, LoCIP. And of course, the bonds, that's not listed here. Those are the more major projects. Okay? And sometimes if they're funded by bonds, they tend to be pulled right out of here. All right, you'll see those, they could take care of many projects all at once if it's part of a bond.
David, do we see where the 500,000 is used?
Sure.
On this?
If you look at the funding source notes, you see that 75,000 master plan implementation to Richter Park?
Yes.
There's where 75 of that 500,000 is used.
Mhm.
And if you flip back, you'll go right through, go back a couple pages.
Okay, so then the next page going backwards
Yeah.
shows us two things that were funded by LoCIP, right?
Sure.
Continuing that.
Replacing boilers at Mill Ridge and replace traps and valves at Park Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone understanding how this works? And then when we get into the notes column, we can see things that are being replaced, and this is using the $500,000.
Yep. Now, some of these, of course, are wish list things, you know, nice to do things, but, you know, a lot of them are not necessarily that way. Some of them may be just studies, but in order to undertake certain infrastructure, major infrastructure renovations, you have to do studies first.
David, in this department request, is this projected over a period of time? Is this like, if you take one of the, I don't know, you're on page 347? Let's take one that's replace roofs at schools, the $2.7 million, I think is what it is, 2.67 million.
Yeah.
Is that a 5-year plan, a 2-year plan, or is this something we have to do next year?
No.
So is there a sense of timing around these requests?
Sure. Look at the, over towards the right, it says fiscal year 10-11.
Okay.
That gives you a sense of when they think it might be needed.
But is there a phase in? We're not going to obviously do everything in 1 year.
That's true. Now, we may do repairs that may prolong the replacement of that.
There may be options then.
Right.
Okay.
Sure, there's certainly options. As I said, a lot of this could be wish list items, and it probably, I lost it, where's it, to replace the roof? Replacing the roof is a lower priority item, I would think.
Mhm.
It's necessary, but not necessarily urgent.
So as we look at this $322 million, this is not something the city is facing
No.
over the next 5 years?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
So
not.
there's a sense of timing on this that's...
Right.
Okay.
You know,
Thank you.
but there are, don't be, you know, don't frighten yourself over that, but, you know, as department managers look ahead, and we always want them to look ahead, you know, that this is something that they have to deal with. And, you know, if we have the ability to bond out certain things, it helps them plan better. It helps, you know, the mayor and the council plan better as well.
Got it.
You know, because instead of repairing, you know, trying to patch these things every year, maybe a better decision would be to replace it. Because sometimes repairing is not the best financial, you know, the use of your resources. But you may not have all that money right now to replace it,
Okay.
you know.
Question.
Yeah.
Looking at the planning commission's request
Sure.
of 6.4 mil and the mayor's request, or mayor's recommendation of 1 mil, 1,050,000.
Mhm.
Is the mayor's contention that most of this is really wish list?
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. But the mayor has to balance needs and wants.
Okay.
You know, he has to balance the needs and what's really needed with, you know, the tax burden and all those other things. You know, the planning
Again,
commission
it's-
doesn't have that
What-
kind of weight on their shoulders.
Question of priority.
Right, absolutely.
Thank you.
But David, in trying to figure out whether or not we want to raise that, how do we know, when you get into the balance of capital improvement, what the priorities are? If we were to make this $2 million available in the funding source
Mhm.
without going to bond, how do we know, I'm trying to figure out, what are we getting? What are we getting done?
If I can give you an example, Ben. Let's say that roof, something happened to that roof. And it, you know, we had a bad ice storm or something, and that roof, we realized, wow, a couple more storms, this thing could really fall in. Then we're in a real serious situation. It says $2.6 million right here. So what are we gonna do? If we're gonna bond it out, we've gotta go out for a referendum, we've gotta do all these other things. That could be a few months off. Well, if we're at the beginning of the winter season,
Mhm.
how are we gonna handle that? We gotta close the school down?
Okay.
You know, because that's what we're dealing with. Same with the boilers, the same with all these other high-ticket items.
What does happen to a severe emergency repair? Say a tornado takes the roof off 3 schools, and an emergency repair is 2.6 million, and obviously we don't have that available anywhere. What would the city do in that situation?
Well, in a sudden thing like that, which was not a pre-existing condition or something like that, obviously we'd have to find other funds. I mean, chances are, in a situation like that, the federal government would come in, we would dip into some of the cash reserves that we have, because we know that the funds will be coming from the federal government in one way or another, or
Okay.
from the state government, however.
Are these insured? The buildings insured?
Most likely, yeah.
Against those kind of
Sure.
catastrophes? So-
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, like,
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out, why do we want to bond so much more where we bond through the council as opposed to going to the public? So.
Well, let me give you perhaps a bridge, you know. We have some bridges that may need to be replaced. You know, obviously you're not going to replace a bridge overnight,
Mhm.
but this, you know, if you want to get it within a construction season, you need to get those things moving.
Good.
You know, you may not be able to, you know, whenever you're have to go into the cycle of council approval, the referendum and all that, you've got to count on about 3 months.
Okay.
You know.
So that is the timeline, is a 3-month timeline, you would say
Yeah,
typically?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you could probably shorten that, but it's, you know, you're talking probably 2 months minimum.
Okay.
So,
The suggestion that you had with regard to a change in the way the bonding is treated within the charter then, you're okay with the 2 million being a trigger point, and then the council could approve beyond the 2 million, but that could then
Subject
if
to,
petition by the
petition
public
by the public,
for a
sure.
referendum. So there is a control mechanism at
Mhm.
place. Am I correct in my thinking then that there is no dollar limit in which the common council is locked into? They could go to 20 million if they chose to do. The same things would apply.
If they sell it to the public well enough.
Right, as
But-
long as the public
but the
doesn't trigger the
public,
referendum
oh,
process.
Anything over 2 million, the public has the right to petition.
But I think
And
that
then
even under 2 million, they currently have the right to petition if they can collect enough
Currently.
signatures.
Correct.
Sure, anything over 500,000 over.
Over 500,000.
Yeah, so I did a review of a lot of the other city charters, and a lot of them had this concept that it was allowed to be put up for referendum if they collected enough signatures, but there was no maximum, because putting the 2 million, I just don't see what we're going to gain, because they can actually
Well,
have
that's not
referendum.
really a maximum.
Okay.
It's not a maximum. It's not like you hit the 2 million, that's all you can do. What that does, it's, under the 2 million, you're not subject to referendum, or you're not subject to petition by the public. That's just available to the council and the mayor to approve as they see fit. Over the 2 million, they can approve over 2 million by ordinance, but then it could be subject to petition.
But even if it's under 2 million,
Mhm.
there has to be a resolution by the council, and any resolution by the council is subject to a referendum, so.
Not a
even under-
referendum,
Well,
no. It's subject to approval by the council.
well,
Then the current charter, yes, yes.
Okay.
But, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're here to revise the current charter.
okay,
So,
yeah.
and I think that's, you know,
So
if
you
we're
would want
looking
it written so
forward.
that it would be anything under 2 million, the public couldn't petition?
Well, not couldn't petition, but it would be part of the normal course that, you know, they can approve bonding up to 2 million, anything over 2 million could be subject to petition by the public if enough signatures are gathered within the time frame.
David, I mean, recently, we're gonna build this, as a city, we're gonna build this police station.
Right.
And we're gonna issue bonds.
Right.
And the bonds are gonna, the whole project will be sold to the public.
Right.
And the mayor will sell this project to and the politicians and the council say, we think this is a good idea, we need a new police station. And, you know, as a community, this is an improvement we all need. It, not only will it, you know, serve the needs of our expanding department, but it'll make North Main Street look a lot better. It'll contribute a lot to the community. The language, the second part of the language that you proposed is gonna shift the burden. Now, the politicians, I mean, who are well informed about this, no longer have to go out and sell this. They're just gonna sell it to each other. The 21 members of the council and the mayor are gonna go along, and they're gonna say, okay, we need it. They understand the need for it. It's no longer selling to the public, because they're gonna vote on it, and it's up to the public to come up with whatever the percentage on the petition's gonna require of signatures. And it changes, it shifts the whole sequence
Well-
around from a community being educated or led by its mayor and its council to a community trying to scramble around and oppose something that maybe a large number of people don't feel is a good idea. It's almost like we're overreaching. We're using the example of a bad bridge where we need the money to kind of shoehorn a much bigger proposal out of it. And I wonder, because I'm not adverse to the idea, you know, the Rose Street Bridge is out, we need $2 million of city money to fix it. It'd be ridiculous to wait to the next time there's gonna be some kind of election to get the votes around to issue $2 million in bonds, or even $3 million in bonds. But the jeopardy I fear is the larger project, you know, the bigger project.
Right.
You know, somebody, you know, the city officials no longer have that burden, maybe not a burden or obligation, to lead the community, to lead Danbury,
Right.
to make this community decision. And that troubles me in some respect, because it's gonna shift our history around, you know, 180 degrees.
Well, you know how these things work, you know, it's something that they'll have to, the council and the mayor will have to live with. As far as, you know, they can vote on it tonight,
Okay.
and as the project evolves, if it's not a good idea, they're the ones that are gonna have to live with it. That's why they still have to sell the idea. It's not something that they can just pass in the, you know, late at night and be done with it, no matter what the dollar amount is. You know, they're in a position where they're still representing the people, and they'll have to sell the idea, especially as the higher the dollar limit is, or the dollar amount is. Because the people are gonna see it, they're gonna hear about it, they're gonna be talking about it. They're still subject to scrutiny, especially the next time at the polls. So, believe me, they'll be very much aware of it. And, you know, I don't know, I think that with a document like that, the number can become outdated in a couple
Okay,
years.
absolutely.
And if you allow that kind of flexibility, in 10 years, it would still be okay. You know, as long as you're subject to the review of the people, and where you might think about adjusting it is how it's petitioned. You see what I'm saying? By the public, and how it's reviewed by the public. That's how you might want to adjust it, or the number of signatures, you know, like you mentioned, you know, that way.
If I can interject something that Diane had done. When she took a look at other communities, of the 12 communities, 7 of them have provisions in their charter that either have no maximum or that have a maximum. There's a trigger point, which is what David is referring to. And in fact, Peter, I think the one that's in West Hartford may be something we want to think, which addresses some of your concerns.
But a lot
And
of the
there's,
charters actually had a provision, a special type of petition that was needed for bonds,
Right.
different than budgets and ordinances.
right, this
So-
is what I was going to refer to in West Hartford. Bonds in excess of 500,000 shall be subject to the approval of majority vote of the electors if petition of 3% of the electors submitted within 30 days of the published notice. So we could put some wording in there that would give, you know, some controls over the common council, but yet provide the flexibility for them to go out and perform the work that has to be done. If we adopt that $2 million and they can go above it, what we could do is attach to that specific item, we could lower the petition to a more reasonable number. As in West Hartford, they use the figure of 3%. So if somebody really has a concern, they could go out and get a petition it, and put it up for a referendum vote.
There is a middle ground in here that I think might make some sense also. And again, we can draw this up any way we want. This is helpful. What started this was, there are repairs that need to be made, and the $500,000 is not adequate. So we could decide to leave it at 500, or we could decide to raise that number. And if we raise that number, we could say if it goes above a certain number, the public can trigger this referendum. But I think that what Peter's saying is, if it's a new project, because if a bridge goes out, I want the mayor to be able to fix it right away. If a roof blows off, we want to be able to fix it right away. But if it's getting out of line, the city does have the right, the electors have the right to come in and try to stop some spending. If it's a new project, I still like the idea that the mayor and the council has to go to the public to sell new projects that are part of a longer range plan. And I think maybe we can work on that, where
That would
we
make
can
sense.
put a number in here that's going to make us all a little bit more nervous, because it's a bigger number. That is at the discretion really of the mayor and the council. Give the public the right to stop it if it gets to be too large, and yet also put a number in there or a description so that if it's a new project moving forward, that it still has to go by the regular referendum rules and things.
I would just caution you, be careful not to have a document like that micromanage or tie the hands. You want oversight, yes, but, you know, as as we've already discussed, some things are so detailed in there, it almost seems like it's telling you how to manage. And that's, I'm not sure that's what you wanted to do,
Mhm.
but, however you word it,
Okay.
you know.
Can I ask-
Sure.
I
Diane?
just want to ask one quick question. It's currently 500,000. How many times a year do you typically issue a 500? I mean, does it like once a year?
Well,
or-
once a year, because, going out for referendum is
Yeah.
kind of expensive. We're, as you know, we're doing a referendum tied in with the election, but we just heard from the school with their rather large increase, that they're gonna need significant funds for technology, about $3 million. And we weren't made aware of this last fall. So we'll end up doing something probably later in the year to help them. But we need to do something immediately to help them with their, small amount. So we gotta deal with the immediate issue, and then we have to deal with that big number later on. So we'll have to, do a referendum, which, of course, it's a big city and it's gonna cost money every time you do that.
So you think, so the school's technology will not be part of the next referendum?
You mean in February?
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Because there's no way of getting it
No way to get it in.
online in time.
No way to get it in.
But if we were to approve
But a
this
$3 million
language.
referendum costs the same as a $30 million referendum.
Right.
Because it's the same amount of people.
Right.
So,
And if we had put in that language that said the council and the mayor can do any number, but at 2 million, we can have a simplified petition process. Potentially then, the council and the mayor could say, you know what, we're gonna do the technology in 1 year, we're gonna approve the $3 million. Then
Right.
it would be up to the electors, if they were up in arms about it, to stop that.
and it doesn't mean that you necessarily want to do it. I mean,
Right. Oh, yeah,
because
there's,
you know,
yeah, I
just
understand
because
that.
It does provide flexibility, which is, I think, what we're all understanding and there's a need for. One thought that I think that I mentioned to you when we met was, does it make sense to try to put a cap on total indebtedness of the city? And how that would compare to bond ratings or how it would affect bond ratings and things like that?
If you look in here, in the first section, I think I gave you a copy of, oh, no, I still have it right here.
Rick?
Would you hand that to Lynn, please?
Carl, can I have that doc?
Sorry.
Thank you, Paul.
Now, this is in the front part of the budget. It's the mayor's message and overview. And it's in the first few pages of the mayor's message section and page 9, the very early part of the budget. And it says, debt service as a percent of expenditure shall not exceed 10%. We're currently about 5.3%, but we try to keep it, keep it within those, well, don't try, we do keep it within those parameters. The debt per capita shall not exceed 1,900 and increases at 3% a year. We're just over $1,000 on that. Debt as a percentage of fair market value shall not exceed 1.5%. Now, if you look at the budget document and you go through, you'll see the historical percentages of this. And it's another number of other debt factors in here. It's been the policy going back a number of years. Is it hard-coded in the charter? I didn't see these percentages hard-coded in the charter, but again, I'm not sure it's one of these things that you necessarily need to hard-code it because it's good government, it's practices, these practices are noted throughout the state and were compared against other cities. And you'll see charts in here, how do we compare against other cities? If you flip, I'm sorry, I don't think I gave this one to everybody, but it's in this budget page.
Yeah, you have debt ratio benchmarks and what you just handed out.
Right, the bench, is that in here?
Yeah.
Did I give that to
With
you?
various
Oh,
other
wow.
cities.
Good, good. Okay. The benchmarks, because we're very cognizant of our, where we want to be on ratings, and we want to keep our ratings high. So we try to stick with the benchmarks, and that's our guide. How do we compare to our peers? And that guides us more than anything.
Mhm.
The council and the mayor is going to say 10%. Well, we're far below that, with good reason. And 1,900, well, we're far below that, with good reason, because for in comparison with our peers, well, that's where we want to be at this point. Now, it allows us some flexibility to adjust over a period, of major capital improvement projects, but, we will drop back down too, and you can see that trend on the second page there too. But again, we stay within the benchmarks of our peers that are also AAA or AA. Very, very high rated communities, as we are.
Okay.
I find this fascinating. I almost feel like this is the type of language that ought to appear in the charter. Some benchmarks, with a bonding process, what you described, but also then you can put a cap on them where they can't go out, Peter, to your point, and float $60 million. And if they decide that was what they wanted to do, and there is no public reaction to it. So we could provide the flexibility and yet have a trigger point in here that with these benchmarks, that if they exceed them, then they have to go to referendum. It sounds complicated, but if we could put that in simple language,
Right.
I'm wondering if that wouldn't be something that would be workable. Do you have a view?
You might want to consider indexing or of some sort, if GASB has recommendations, and that could change, it doesn't change very often.
Mhm.
You know, if GASB's recommendation is this, then.
GASB is
the-
government.
Yeah, the Government Auditing Standards Board. Then, you know, you may want to say that limit should not exceed GASB's recommended amount. In you know, currently. You know, but that could be something, you know, I could look into a little bit more and about some of these rates to see if we could find some kind of, instead of hard coding it, put something that references a authoritative body, you know, that's a
GASB?
GASB.
But it sounds like it's something you're following now anyway. This would just be formalizing
I
the
didn't
process.
hear you, I'm sorry.
It would, this sounds like these benchmarks are something that you're following now.
Sure,
As
yes.
a matter of policy.
Sure, as a
So all
matter of
we would
policy.
would be formalizing it in a charter, assuming that everybody agrees with it, of course.
But what I would be concerned about is that this is a living document. Hard coding numbers could in 5 years, 10 years.
That's why I don't like a $2 million cap, David.
Yeah, no, I understand.
500,000
And I understand.
is archaic, is
understand
$2
that.
million, you know.
I understand that. The only thing that would give you flexibility on that, you know, I mean, if you're going to say 2 million, as long as they'll say 5 million. I understand exactly
Right.
what you're saying with that, but as long as the core elements are there, you know, that you provide the flexibility and you provide oversight by the public,
Right.
and you know, oversight or flexibility by your elected officials and you know, and the mayor to manage the, you know, this couple $100 million business that, as they're elected to do, and their staff, and oversight by the public, so they have a feel and a sense of what's going on.
Exactly. Well,
And that's not unreasonable.
That's Peter's point, and I think that,
You know, whatever
I
that
think he's
number-
right in trying to
But two-
establish some sort of guidelines.
David, is there any significance to the 20-year term for these bonds? Is that,
That's a state.
so that's,
State.
that's.
That's why you can say, like right now, that they modified that for school things, so.
How quickly does the $2 million trigger point? Probably, it's between charter revisions, I would imagine. God, we're gonna have to wait, we're taking this $500,000 cap and saying we need a referendum after, and we're raising that to 2 million. Is it in the latter years, you know, you have a
Yeah.
charter revision every, how many years?
Yeah.
Every decade, 15 years? So do you reach it in 5, do you reach it in 7, is it just the back end?
I quite honestly, the
Is-
2 million is just a discussion number.
Is it,
You know,
does it have any?
The number, I mean, it's very, the point is very valid as far as, you need something that is clearly flexible enough, because the number is whatever you're comfortable with. But it has to be high enough to provide for the routine projects, basically.
And the unforeseen.
Just some follow-up questions on the 500,000. We have currently a $500,000 limit, which we're all well aware of. But that's per project, isn't it? That's not an annual cap.
No, it is, we limit ourselves on a annual basis to that. We can't
And-
just.
In your
we got this
interpretation
project,
of
we
the
got this
$2
project.
million, if we just change the wording, instead of 500,000, and we put 2 million in, you would interpret it as being, you'd be limited to, the council would be limited to up to $2 million of bonds, period, in any budget year.
If that's the way it's written in the charter.
I don't think it is, but, okay.
Yeah, I don't think that it currently has per year,
No.
so,
I
even though
just-
that's
I
the
mean-
way it's been.
Yeah, but that's the way it's been
Interpreted.
Give us a lot to think about. I know there are other issues that you bump up against with the charter, and I wanted to, while you're here, ask you about those.
Sure, that's why I'm here.
where do you want to start? I mean,
Oh, well, no, that's up to you. I mean, I know you're gonna have several meetings, and I'm gonna try to be here for every one of them, so I'll always be available
you
to
don't mind coming back then?
Oh, no, not at all. I'm here to help you, or to listen and learn as well, so.
Diane?
I just had a general question of you that's not related to the bond issuance process, and it has to do with, one of the things we were asked to look at during the public hearing was, I guess, the various elected officials we have. And I know we have a treasurer and a director of finance, and I know that other municipalities have only one or the other. And so I just wanted to see how the duties are divided, and is it problematic, or does it work well, or, you know?
No, it works well.
Okay, so,
Works well. I
so-
mean, they serve different purposes.
Anything else for me?
You know, and, you know, it's another, my signature means something different than the treasurer's signature. They're validating something different.
I may ask you to think about the treasurer's position.
I don't want it.
In terms of, in the future, thinking about,
Put in.
because someone may ask you your opinion as to whether we need one. Could it be moved around? Is it a position that we need in the future? I wouldn't want you to have to think about it right on the spot, but
Okay.
I think I'd love to explore that issue if there is one
Okay.
in the future, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's technically not an agenda item, so probably we can't have that discussion. But it will be an agenda item.
Okay.
And
We
Yeah.
can if 2/3 of us vote to add.
Thank you, Peter.
Well, I'm asking for the future.
David, when is budget season over for you?
I don't think it's ever over. I'm always asking.
Well said.
We spent
But
11
we
months planning and 1 month executing,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
The council is slated to approve the final budget when?
Oh, well, it's in April. I will have probably a break in May. I mean, that's when I'll get a break.
Okay.
You know, if that's what you're asking, when is my?
When is it convenient to be back? We would like to have you back before then, but we're going to try to
Oh,
steer.
well, I mean,
Because we understand
I-
what it's like this time of year for you.
I will be back, you know, at your, my assistant has put the meetings on my schedule, so,
Okay.
you know, my other things will work around these meetings.
Okay.
You know, because I know this is you know, it's an important item for us, so.
Yep.
And if there's anything you would like us to look at as we go through this document, if you want to write us a letter, we'd be
Okay.
very happy to receive that.
Okay.
And consider that.
All right.
With specific provisions in the charter that your department and those that you supervise bump up against and are encumbered by.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Specifically, as it relates to job titles and descriptions and things, the charter talk about micromanagement. The charter does seem to do that.
Yeah,
So
is that the direction?
that is a
Is that
direction.
you're thinking of going in, getting in that specific, or?
I think we would like to unmicromanage it.
Oh, okay.
Speaking for myself.
Yeah.
So if there's issues in there where you think you could be more efficient, we would like to know about that, because right now, this is kind of surprising with the detail that's in here, and if there's a way that we can simplify it and build flexibility, and I think we as a commission should look into it. So, just something
Okay.
else. Any other questions regarding this topic from the commissioners?
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, thank you very much.
I didn't give you my charter, did I?
Sorry?
Did I give you my charter? Oh,
I think
I
so.
gave a whole bunch of stuff to you, but.
You gave me this, and you gave me this.
Oh, okay, all right.
And the other one, but that's all.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a lot to chew on with what you're
No.
saying here.
Not to read. If you got any questions?
I think hopefully we'll reach some resolution and pass it by you before.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, David.
David,
for
thank
all
you.
your hard work.
Gotcha.
Any more discussion on this? Do people want to talk a little bit about which direction we want to go on this? Because we do need to move forward with it in one way, shape, or form.
You know, I think we have some things to think about, and I'm not sure if you want to take the time tonight to do that, as opposed to digesting the information that's been handed out to us.
Okay.
But
Eric,
I think I've let my position be known, so.
Eric, did you have language that you were working on this piece for us?
On the bonding, no.
Okay.
No, but I have some thoughts on it.
Please.
Just to clarify where you are, so that there's no doubt about what the charter currently says. Anytime you issue bonds or notes, that has to be done by ordinance, whether it's $200,000 or $200 million. The language in the charter says, whenever you adopt an ordinance, the public has the right to petition and go to referendum on it. So they always have the right to go to a petition and referendum when it comes to borrowing. The only thing the language in the charter does, the language that you're talking about now, is require a referendum at the trigger point of $500,000. So, for example, if you were to eliminate that language, what you would do is still enable the people to bring a petition and go to referendum at whatever the amount was. So, your idea, Bob, of altering what it requires to go to referendum is the significant idea, it seems to me. Rather than saying, we're going to raise it to $2 million and say the people have a right to bring it to referendum, that adds nothing to what's already in the charter, because it's an ordinance and can be brought to referendum. So unless you decide that 15% is too big a number, in terms of number of signatures on a petition, then really, all you need to do is decide whether or not you want to have an automatic one at $2 million or some other number, or drop the language entirely. Is that clear?
That's what I couldn't get my arms around, what the point of the trigger point.
That's where it's
That's-
mandatory.
That just becomes mandatory.
Yeah, ordinance.
And again, it's per year, that's just,
It's not per year, it's per
Project.
borrowing. Whenever you borrow, whenever you issue bonds or notes, in whatever amount.
per ordinance, so to speak?
Per ordinance.
Bridge, boom, boom, private roads, whatever.
Correct.
I got
Yeah, I think you might run into trouble if you decided, oh, I have an idea. Let's adopt 2 ordinances for one bridge, each
Yeah.
$500,000.
Right.
That's, if it were up to me, I'd say you couldn't do that.
That could cover it.
Well, the good
We
news,
put language in there to lower the barrier for a successful petition if the public did not agree to it. Instead of having a maximum amount of $2 million, just saying that any bond, any petition for a bond requires like 3% or something like that, instead of the 15% that a full
Right.
referendum requires. That would be more equitable because it would allow the public to voice their objection with a lower barrier of the amount of signatures that we
Yeah.
needed.
But that is a 30-day process, right?
The collection of signatures, yes.
Okay. Because if we change that language, I think what we also have to be aware of is a need to proceed with the project in case of emergencies. Now, 30 days is not unreasonable, but if that were to be drawn out, the whole process for, 6 months, like we're facing with the Rose Avenue Bridge, that's not reasonable in my view.
There is an emergency appropriation section in this charter that does allow, I guess, expedited handling of it, but you still have to follow the charter.
Right.
And currently, there's no, whatever the petition is, like Ms. Waller talked about, 5% or 15% in 30 days, it's not different for a budgeted or a bonding ordinance as opposed to any other type of ordinance. Thanks.
Could we lower the percentage of signatures needed on this specific item? Is that something we could do?
I believe you do have the authority
Yeah.
to do that.
How's that, Bill? Is that something we want to consider?
Well, no, I'd say one man's issue is, where you have a bonding issue, I may have, but, you know what I mean? I don't think a financial ordinance has any more or less weight than any other ordinance that is proposed. So that,
well,
what concerns the citizens about one ordinance, I just hate to give less weight or more weight to one ordinance over another. Right now, they're treated evenly. So an ordinance comes up on X, Y, or Z, or comes up on bonding, the petition is still the same. Whereas if those who have financial concerns,
But currently, at above $500,000, it has to go to referendum.
right.
So are you guys thinking we don't want a dollar number in there, or we do want a dollar number in there and an easier referendum trigger?
I'm thinking we need to have a better discussion about this among ourselves.
Isn't this the time to do that?
If you want to have it tonight, yes. Okay.
Am I hearing that we'd like to do this at the next meeting, that we will have our discussion on this topic at the next meeting?
Yes.
That way we can digest everything that we've heard and read all the handouts and do any research that we want to.
I wanted to have a vote other than adjourning the meeting sometime. Okay. Hearing the commissioners.
This is a big item.
We will, okay, so item number 1 at the next meeting will be the discussion of this bonding and coming up with some ideas so that Mr. Gottschalk can give us some verbiage that might take care of that. Any concerns about that? Okay, we have that set for the next
One
meeting.
suggestion.
Yes.
This handout that Diane passed out a while back, has anybody had a chance to look at this? This one particular chart that talks about what other communities do?
I do have a question on that, Diane. Some of those communities I know have board of finance.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily consider that an apples to apples comparison, because in addition to having a legislative council like we have, they also have a board of finance that reviews this whole bonding proposal. Do you know which ones? I noticed 2 or 3 of them that.
I could go through and identify which ones have a Board of Finance, but that's what made it difficult to just summarize everything in a nutshell, because all of the governments were so different, and you really had to look at all the different factors without just putting a 2-sentence blurb in there.
Right. But what I took away from this thing was the number of communities that were looking to add flexibility. And I know they have a different spin on it. Some of the dynamics of the communities are very different than what ours are. But I just found it as a trend interesting to see where the heads of the various communities are going.
Okay, any other questions on that?
I just want to, one thing,
Oh.
and it just for purposes.
You want to hold that?
Yeah. And I keep doing this. Plus all of it. All right?
You may continue.
I just want the commissioners to take a look. In the 1990 charter, the old section 710 had said at one point, instead of 2/3 of the membership of the council. I take that back. No, they just, it was I thought it went from entire membership to 2/3, and it didn't. It didn't. I apologize.
It's just all members.
All members, yeah.
Okay, we're
That's it.
officially tabled on that topic. Are we ready to go?
Next time.
Go to the next time. David, thank you. And as much as we like having you here, if you'd like to go home, you may.
Your family would
That's-
enjoy seeing.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna take you up on that.
yeah, that's,
My bedtime soon.
yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, section number 3 on our agenda is the commission will have discussion with its counsel, Eric Gottschalk, regarding Charter Provision 3-4, public speaking before council meetings.
Before we get to that, I have other handouts. I was requested to obtain copies of charters from 4 municipalities, and we got 3. And the 4th one's coming from West Haven, who knows when. The first one is Waterbury, and we got this through former Director of Health, Bill Campbell, and as my secretary was printing them, she realized that the copy we received has some pages upside down on the reverse side, so there's, I guess, nothing she chose to do about that late in the day, and some cut off the side, but I hope they're of some value, and if it gets down to the point where we need some clarification,
I think that's
we'll get that.
Waterbury.
That's
That's on
Waterbury,
purpose.
isn't it? Here. Start them going towards the middle. Next is Milford, or no, I'm sorry. There's Milford. Here's Hamden.
We do, yeah, Peter doesn't want one. He has to read.
Peter doesn't want one. Come on, Peter.
And here is
Diane,
Milford.
Do you need an extra?
No, I got thanks. You don't want Hamden, it's a small one.
Yeah, I do want him. That's not why I don't want one. I have other reasons.
And if you have an extra copy of that one from Hamden,
We do.
I'll take it back from you. Let's see.
Here's Hamden extras. Well, these are extras.
Diane, read through all this material and report back on us next time.
Yeah.
She didn't hear that.
A motion's been made that Diane read through all this, summarize and get back to us.
Second.
You can't second your own motion.
I can't second my own motion. She has become
Look at
the
date,
authority.
1983, we were old.
Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome. Okay, on to 3-4. First, a question came up about the origin of the current language. So I have a handout on that. It started in 1977. It was at least a half hour and prior to adjournment. And I looked back at some old minutes, and sure enough, even though I didn't remember it this way, the public speaking came at the end. And I guess the thinking was that, gee, it's kind of too late to say much then, because the action's already been taken. It had to be a conversation about what was on the agenda, and the items had already been adopted or defeated by the time the public got to speak about it. And so that was kind of a gnashing of teeth session. And so then it was changed. And let's see. The next time it came up was in '88, and that was rejected. That was they proposed a deletion of prior to adjournment. Everybody got a chance to go through that? And here's some proposed language based on the conversations we had last time and some input from the mayor in the meantime. And I'll give you a moment to read through that too. I see a missing phrase in the last sentence of that second paragraph. It should say, "and called into question the right of counsel." Does that make more sense?
Say that again, what do you want to say?
Yeah.
And called into question the right of counsel.
And
Because
called
if
into
the-
question.
Yeah, in other words, if the attorney was from Stanford, He couldn't stand up and speak on behalf of...
Oh, that's in the middle paragraph.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Second paragraph, yeah. So now that I've been talking, I'll give you a little more time to read that through.
There should be capital P.
Everyone done reading? Okay, questions? Good, Mr. Gottschalk.
I just had a general comment.
Mhm.
When looking at other charters, I could find none of them that actually addressed the whole public speaking at council meetings. But I did find, and this is not part of a charter, this is West Hartford, and they had sort of like a link on their website, just general procedures for public hearings. And it was just instructions for the public on what they should do at public hearings or at council meetings, but it didn't, it wasn't part of the charter. So maybe we might consider taking that whole section out of there altogether and just having some, this little link on this website said that 1 hour prior to each meeting, there's going to be a sign-in sheet. And people would be given 3 minutes, anyone that signed on the sheet within the half hour prior to the meeting would be given a 3-minute time period to speak. Unless they were representing a group, then they would be given 5 minutes. And there's a whole bunch of little rules here, but maybe we could adopt a concept like that and take it out of the charter altogether.
If 100 people signed up, was there any provision for limiting, for cutting off public discourse and then going to the agenda for the meeting?
No.
That's the only downside I see to that.
Yeah.
I'd hate to micromanage the meeting.
Yeah.
I certainly want everyone from the public who wants to speak to be able to speak.
Yeah.
And if there's too many, then they gotta either extend it or move it for another, have a full public hearing or whatever.
Or have the person there take the heat from the public for saying, I'm closing the debate.
Right.
That's
You
what
know,
this language.
Not hide behind the charter.
There you go. I mean, you know, I wouldn't have necessarily interpreted the language to say no more than a half hour, it's a half hour period. But, you know, the point is that the people present should have the tools and the power to make the decisions faced with the people who, anybody who's there in the public, and make a decision. We have a big agenda, we don't want to listen anymore. I mean, and let him take the heat for it, or have the power to take the heat. I think this language does that.
I agree.
And you can no longer hide behind the charter and say, we can't listen anymore. No, no. And I'm ready to vote.
Do you like the 30 minutes section? Is that
Yeah,
enough? Is it too little?
It leaves it the same.
Okay. Eric, how would this, if 2/3 of the members of the council wanted to extend the time period, is it done simply with a motion, or is it a point of order?
Done through a motion by any member of the county council.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
If I might add one, question also came up about the right of the common council or the presiding officer to fashion rules about how long someone can speak. That came up as well, and I was asked to take a look at Robert's rules to see what Robert had to say about those issues. And Robert's rules contemplates that the only people speaking are members. And so it's not automatically applicable to our question. But what it did say is that with respect to conduct and speaking by members, if there is nothing stated in your rules there's a 10-minute limit. But that it's subject to the rules of the body. And it seems to me that if Robert's Rules provides a vehicle for limiting the ability of the members to speak, we ought certainly to contemplate that the body has the right to limit participation, speaking, by people who aren't members. And so that's the advice that I've given the mayor. What I advised him was that, in my opinion, he could place limits on the right of individual members of the public to speak, subject to the consent of the common council.
But that wouldn't have to be contained in this
It
document.
does not.
That's separate. One question on this. It says, shall reserve the initial 1/2 hour period. Suppose to what Lynn Waller had brought up. Council's ready to start with its business, and nobody is there. After 20 minutes, somebody walks in and says, I want to address the council, I'm still within a 1/2 hour. Does that give them the right to do it?
In my opinion, the meeting begins when the public session begins. And if there's no one there to speak, the business of the council goes forward.
So once the council then begins its official business, that may not be the initial 1/2 hour.
That's
It
the
may-
way it's always been interpreted. It hasn't caused a problem, except perhaps for the people who came late.
Does this wording then complicate that process or not?
It hasn't in the past, that's all I can tell you.
So we're okay with it?
I have a concern on the 2/3 vote. Why not make this, and I'm asking my commissioners, my fellow commissioners, why not make this a majority vote to change the presiding officer's decision? And understand it can go either way. It could be that the presiding officer wants everyone to speak for 3 hours because they're on that person's side, and the council could vote to say, no, we're gonna cut off debate at 30 minutes. How do you feel about a majority vote versus a 2/3 vote?
I'm comfortable with majority vote.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
That would be the,
That's fine. And you want to modify it?
yeah, I'd like to discuss it, and if everyone's happy with that, are any strong reasons why it could be one way or the other? Okay. Then do we want to act on this language?
Modified.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
Peter, if you would, please.
I move that we adopt the suggested language for insertion in section 3-4 of the city charter that's before us today. And we would strike the phrase 2/3 and replace that with majority. And we vote on that as a change we recommend to the city charter. That's my motion.
Okay.
I second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. And discussion on that motion? Mary has a question on the terms "in the discretion of the presiding officer."
Shouldn't it be at the
Should
discretion?
it be at the discretion?
She go to Catholic school.
So that math stuff was over my head.
Shouldn't presiding officer also be a capital P and a capital O?
Shouldn't it be at the
I don't think it
discretion?
is in the charter.
It's not.
It's not.
No.
I thought it was an official.
And I'm not sure whether it should be in or at. I think I've heard both.
Do you wish to?
Any more discussion?
No.
Are you more comfortable with "in" or "at," and do we want to amend the motion?
Well,
It's in.
I'm comfortable with either
If
one.
if we're happy with "in," we can leave it at "in."
So
I will try your minds. All in favor of accepting the motion, where the only change to the written word is that we are doing it as a majority vote of the council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Eric, does this mean that you
This is
will,
it.
I'll revise the
you will
language and
revise
provide
it?
you with a copy.
And that's the first act.
Yay! Our leader got us through that.
Yeah, thanks. Okay.
Just because she's pretty.
Next agenda item, section 4-2, gifts to city departments.
Wow. He busted through the wall.
What's that?
They made a vote. Busted through the wall.
Gifts and donations. I have a handout.
Wow.
I know, it's great, isn't it?
We're impressed, Rick.
Killing
You know,
trees here.
I'm working on it, man.
You can tell you've been burning the midnight oil just from the number of handouts.
I have another handout. You see, in maybe the first sentence in there, there's a reference to 7-148 of the state statutes, which is a dandy little section for you to have, because it contains a lot of information about the powers of municipalities, including the power to accept gifts. Does everybody have one? I got one more.
Thank you, thank you. This is not in the current charter.
It's correct. It's not in the current charter. There's nothing in the charter at all
Right.
about gifts. Yeah, currently,
Every gift has to be approved, and it goes through city council, I guess.
but that's not required by the existing charter. It's required by, I guess, practice and interpretation over the many years in the city of Danbury.
It's how they interpreted the state statute.
That's correct. I think that's what he's explaining to us in the first handout, and that's what was explained to us in our earlier meeting, that.
Do you recall what David said to us, what the hang-up was with that?
It's small amounts, and it has to be approved by the common council. The small dollar amounts is a problem within his department too, that they have to earmark these funds. And that the accounting process is complicated somewhat. Not complicated, but it just takes an abnormal amount of time and effort for a small gift. Then you have to get into the acknowledgement phase of it, which means sending out a letter or some sort of acknowledgement to the donor. And so for a $10 gift, it may end up costing us $150 to accept it. So to streamline the process, in his words, would be, a good thing to do.
So do we all agree, we all understand what this provision deals with in terms of gifts to departments?
Any other questions or concerns? Eric, do you want to go through this with us?
Yeah. You have to start I'm going to try and restate what I put in that first paragraph. In order to understand this, you have to start with the language in 3.4, which says the council, towards the end, said council shall also have all powers granted to municipalities by section 194. And it doesn't even say 148. Because between 1977 and now, virtually all, with one exception, all those powers that were in 194 got dumped into 148. So we said, all right, even though the charter doesn't say it, we understand what's going on here, and we're going to say that all the powers in 148 reside with the Common Council, including stuff relating to the acceptance of gifts. So that's how we got into the situation where the Common Council every month has several items, including $10 to the library from Jane and Joe Dokes. And look, it's not an awful lot of time, but there are occasions where it's not money, which can wait till next month. It's something else that's time sensitive. Gifts to the homeless shelter of food, or gifts associated with upcoming events that are fixed by calendar. And in those kinds of cases, this language does present something of an obstacle. So since the Common Council, as we've interpreted this set of statutes and charter, requires the council to do this, we're saying the exception, I'm saying to you, the exception ought to be in the charter, since we can't put it in the statutes. And so that's why I've gotten you down to the last paragraph of the next to last handout that I gave you. And I thought to add it at the end of 4-2. Maybe you all might have a better place to put it, but I couldn't think of one off the top of my head.
No, I think that fits well. I like the language in this versus the original language that was proposed to us that refers to the department head. This is to the city of Danbury.
Yeah, that's right.
And, I think we all labored over the initial wording of that, but that was just to bring the issue up, not specific.
And you'll notice I put at the end, just so there's a clear understanding that the acceptance of these gifts ought to be somehow reflected on the record before the Common Council.
Right.
That in any event, whether the mayor has the ability to accept it because it's under $1,000 or otherwise, this is going to the Common Council.
Question, what happens if it's over 1,000?
It'll follow the same procedure that we've got now, which is it goes to the council.
Do
prior
we need
the
to state
acceptance.
that in this or not?
Nope.
No.
Any questions, concerns?
You may have answered this, and I apologize. If the gift is made to the library, we accept it on behalf of the city of Danbury, we don't have to tell the mayor he has to accept it and give it to the library, or he puts it in the general fund?
No. Usually, these gifts come in, and it's a gift that's received by the library for library purposes. So in order to comport with the intention of the donor, we gotta, if you're gonna accept the gift.
Accept the gift as it's given, so you're
Yeah.
saying. I get you, okay. I have no further.
And you understand why it's in the section of duties for the mayor, because in effect, the mayor's gonna accept and notify the council, so that, okay, try your minds. Would anyone like to move that we accept this language?
I make a motion to accept the language as written and modify section 4.2 of the charter.
A motion has been made, seconded.
Second motion.
Second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2.
On a roll.
All right. What's number? Okay, section 6-4, settlements of claims against the city covered by insurance.
I have a handout.
And this time we're gonna do it correct, and I'm gonna need a motion that we accept this We'll
Accept
get a
the
second,
handout?
then we'll have our discussion. How's that?
Motion to accept the handout.
You're on a roll, whatever you want to do.
All right, the motion has been made.
That's good to know. No.
All right, a motion has been made that we accept
one.
this language.
Just
Can I
one
get a
page.
second for that? Mr. King seconds it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. sir.
Now, can we have some discussion?
Mr. Chairman, who made the motion?
Mary
Mary.
Comstock.
Mary comes.
Rick, in this is not this is a very small point. In the last section we changed, we used the word report any donation to the council. In this one, in the last sentence of your suggested language, you use the word notice. I assume it means the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any interest in our
Can I
part?
see-
Just
I'm sorry, what did I say last time?
Report.
Shall report the acceptance, and it says notice of each such, yeah. I'm just
Is there any
kinda
benefit to
consistent
using
kinda
the
thinker.
consistent language throughout the charter, or does it matter?
Strictly up to you, what words we use. I think the intentions, my intention in drafting this was the same.
Oh,
We can change that with an amendment, so that's easily done. Does everyone understand what we're trying to do here? Simplify a process. Any questions?
I would propose adding 3 words. Note, I'm reading the quoted language, notwithstanding the foregoing, claims against the city may be compromised or settled by the corporation council with the approval of the mayor, provided, I know it's somewhat, because notwithstanding the foregoing, I didn't want this to be taken that the mayor could just go out and approve
Yes.
without corporation council.
And I guess it wouldn't belong in this section if it was the mayor's duty, so.
That's right, it's in the court council section. You have a good point. That's in effect who does settle the claims, right?
What happens is that the insurance companies will contact us. In all of the more significant cases, they contact the Corporation Counsel's office. I'm not going to say to you that each and every case comes to our office. There are some matters that are handled really on a routine basis, and I think they're just reported to the finance office. But, you know, I think we can, the proposal that Paul is making is fine. We'll just arrange administratively to have there be a conversation between the Corporation Council, the Department of Finance, and the mayor. We're going to have to structure some kind of new administrative approach to comport with this language anyway, and it makes good sense, frankly.
Are you saying now that individual departments, for example, can settle claims?
I'm saying that that for a fall down case, a sidewalk slip and fall case, the insurance companies don't report uniformly to the Corporation Counsel's office,
To whom do they report to?
the finance office.
Oh, okay.
Would that have been the former position of the risk manager, would have been the
Yes.
person before that?
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So do we need that language that I'm proposing?
I think it makes sense to have it. There should be a conversation at a minimum. You're going to involve the mayor's office, for heaven's sake. I don't think it's a huge inconvenience that in matters of litigation, the Corporation Counsel's office would be involved. I think it makes,
How about
I think
the
it's
approval by
wise
the mayor
approach.
instead of the mayor? And then whoever settles it, the mayor has to approve it.
So do we want to change, do we want this to come back?
I think
Or
we can
we-
solve this tonight.
Let's solve this tonight.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right.
Go ahead. What's your
So
language?
Paul is amending the motion
Correct.
that we add the terms,
Where's that from?
Notwithstanding the foregoing, claims against the city may be compromised or settled by the corporation council with the approval of the mayor, provided that. So between the words settled and with, by the corporation council.
and you were
With the
also,
approval of the mayor.
and you were also amending, I think, to change the word notice to report. That is also part of your amendment? Am I leading the witness here?
No.
No, it's fine.
You say report,
Report,
So
yeah.
make it report, just to keep the language.
Yeah, delete the word notice, put in the word report.
Okay, so we have an amendment on the floor,
report on notice of.
and what that amendment says is that we're gonna add the language between settled and with. The language will be by the corporation council, and in the last sentence, instead of the word notice, it'll start with the word report.
Take off the word all,
Shouldn't it be a report? Because it's a report on each.
or a
Just to
report
be
of
grammatically
each.
correct.
I think anyway with report of each such compromise or settlement shall be provided.
Report of each. Okay.
Okay? All right, any discussion on the amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. That now becomes the motion. So the motion is that we would adopt this language with those changes that we just voted on as an amendment. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We'll be out of here by March at this rate.
I'm retired, I got a lot.
Every day Saturday,
Rick, do you have something you'd like to share?
I have a handout.
Well put, Paul.
I'd like to bring to the commissioner's attention that Rick has a handout.
And the trees continue to fall.
I'll tell you, when we're reading these, that's compelling television.
So if things get slow, Carly, you can always read the Waterbury Charter.
That's right.
Upside down.
We're gonna,
As it was intended to be read.
it's inverted and reversed. Okay, section 7-8,
Oh, this is that.
public improvements. May I have a motion that we accept this language?
So moved.
Motion's been made, a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Comstock. Discussion. Rick, would you like to lead us on this one?
Sure. We currently have language in 7-8, it deals just with sewer and water. The statutes contain references not just to sewer and water assessments, because it's a special benefit to an identifiable group of citizens, but also to public projects in general, where they confer a special benefit. And the example that we talked about privately had to do with Ann Drive, for example, which is a cul-de-sac, and certainly any improvement of that road would confer a special benefit on the people who live in that small community. However, members of the public generally also might use Ann Drive. And so there may be a component of this cost that ought to be borne by the general public. And so that's why I've added some language in here to address that concern. It's in a way, you could say that if you're going to talk about public improvements generally, they're kind of different, or at least have a likelihood of being different than sewer and water. We now have 3 ordinances, not just charter section, but 3 ordinances that establish standards for the imposition of these benefit assessments with respect to sewer, water, and public improvements generally. The public improvements set of ordinances isn't used that often. I believe that there's a proposal to use it currently pending before the Common Council, but it's generally speaking rare because people who come and vote in favor of sewer and water assessments against their own properties have an urgent need by and large. That may not necessarily be the case, or the need may not be that urgent when it comes to public improvements generally. So we don't know how this is going to go, but it made sense to put it in here and to provide special acknowledgement to the fact that you may have not just a situation involving payments by individual property owners, but by the city generally. Before you go on, or I'll save it till after your discussion, but remind me, there is another section of the charter that we ought to also talk about when it comes to this.
Rick?
So can I understand this, Rick? So right now, we have an ordinance, but the ordinance, most ordinances hang their hat somewhere on the charter and take off from there, or a statute. And we have an ordinance that really doesn't have a place to be backed up. Is that
It
fair
has a
to say?
place to be backed up in state law,
Okay.
but not in the charter.
Okay.
And it seems to fit rather comfortably in this system with respect to sewer and water.
Okay.
So what we're doing is, we're going to rename sewer and water assessments and user charges to the public improvements assessments. So,
The title of that one.
yeah, so the title changes, and then this language is just a little bit broader.
Good. Who would trigger this thing? Would it be by people in the neighborhood requesting it? Or with this language, could the city just come in and say, we're deciding to improve Ann Drive, and P.S., you're gonna pay for it?
Could happen either way.
Shouldn't there be some provision in here to protect the public from that type of activity? If the city is coming in and saying, we're gonna improve it, to me, I view that different than the neighborhood coming in and asking the city to do it. I think under that condition, they need to pay for it. But if the city says, for the benefit of the city, we're gonna do it, then I think the city should pick up the cost. Does that make sense?
I will tell you this. By and large, to a greater or lesser degree, you're going to find that there's always a public benefit to sewers, for example, even though we impose them on individuals. And there's a herd benefit to having sewers. And sometimes, mostly, it comes from a proposal by the individual property owners who are in urgent need because their septic systems are failing. But it sometimes can come from the director of health. I mean, I'm not sure that, as David St. Hilaire said, the Common Council is composed of 21 elected members. The mayor is elected, at least as for now, on a 2-year basis. They're keenly attuned to the concerns of the public.
How do you feel
About this, I think we've had the ordinance. I don't think it's going to get used that often. In the rare cases, it needs to be used. This just gives a little more foundation to the existing ordinance.
I guess I'm still concerned about the big brother kind of thing coming in.
So what would you be concerned about? We have an existing road, the city decides to repave it and then assesses the neighbors?
Right.
Okay.
And this would this would allow them to do that. This language.
So the
Robert,
ordinance,
the ordinance already exists.
it's, in a way, it's a technical change, in that it gives some consistency. It gives the support in the charter for that which they already can do by state law. Nothing could stop them.
But
They could do that at this very moment.
it could, but right now, it's sewer and water. Now we're opening up to other things,
Well,
and that's what my concern
No, the
is.
sewer and water is, I think, in the basis in the charter.
Right.
The public improvement assessment is in the ordinance. We're bringing the two together.
There always was language in state law, regardless of the language in that charter, that permitted a municipality to assess benefits for sewer, water, and public improvements. For whatever reason, the drafters of this charter in 1977 decided to put the language with respect to sewer and water in the charter, and didn't put in the language with respect to public improvements generally. That didn't mean that the municipality didn't have that power, because it's granted to them by state law.
So the whole driving reason for this revision is really just to make the charter consistent with the ordinances and the state statute?
It seemed to me to kind of round out the whole, and I kind of like the idea of putting the common council members on notice before it comes up with respect to any particular project, that they may have to kick in some money.
And I think you did it very well.
I like that
This is a
part.
very
You had a
artful draft.
section you wanted to remind us of?
I do. If you take a look at 710 that you were talking about with David St. Hilaire earlier, in subsection C, there's a provision that deals with borrowings in connection with sewer and water. What's the significance of that section? The significance is that the Common Council can borrow to fund sewer and water projects without going to referendum regardless of the number. It's to be paid back by assessments. Is the idea. And maybe I'm throwing a ringer into this by acknowledging the fact that the city may have to contribute to the cost of a public improvement. And if you tie that into 710, that may mean that the city can borrow an amount without going to referendum that isn't paid back through assessments. I'll let you struggle with that one, but that's the way I see it.
However, 710, this has nothing to do with 710.
As written, it
As
has nothing
written.
to do with it. That's correct.
Okay.
I'm just saying that if you want to give that power to the city to borrow for the purpose of a public improvement that will, in some part, large or small, be paid back through assessments, then you need to look at 710 as well. But that, maybe you want to save for another day. You're going to be talking about 710 another day. You could just tackle
Yeah.
7-8
Okay.
today.
A motion is on the floor that we accept this language in section 7-8. Any more discussion? Then let's vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Not quite unanimous. One nay vote. Okay. Conflicts of interest, section 8-3. Eric, have you got a handout?
Well, why, yes, I do.
They reversed this.
When I first started thinking about this, I didn't think that any change was necessary. And then I thought better of that. Oh, there's another one here, if anybody needs one.
Right behind you there.
Oh, you have-
Did you get one? Oops.
I got it, I'm all set.
And I have a couple of more handouts, too, because I knew secretly you wanted some more. These next two handouts are coming from state law.
Thank you.